What is going on, everyone, and welcome to r/EntitledParents. In today's first story, an entitled mum doesn't understand the concept of live audio recordings and the importance of being quiet during those. But before we jump into that, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel. I'm trying to hit 600,000 subscribers by the end of 2020, and if I do hit that milestone, then I'll be dyeing my hair a different color, which you guys will be able to decide on. It's up to you guys. Hit subscribe. Let's get into the story. Entitled mum thinks her child is the exception to the no children allowed rule for a live audio recording. For context, I used to work for a church as an audio technician and just general hand for weekend services and things. A few years ago, the church pulled enough money together to record a live worship session to put on sale. It was a really important thing that had been in the works for months, and in case you don't know, really expensive to do. So the decision was made to not allow children under the age of 12 or 13, can't remember now exactly, into this recording service, under the logic that kids that young can't be quiet the entire night, with the entire crowd being recorded with a ton of microphones as well. And this was advertised as the rule well in advance. So there I was, standing at the main entrance, welcoming people and explaining what to expect. And I see her walk up with her kids. "Excuse me, mom, but children under a certain age aren't allowed in the service tonight. We do have activities and alternative arrangements ready for them in the other building though." The entitled mum replied, what? I explained to her again while still getting stared at. "But my kids are really mature and grown up. They'll be fine. Don't worry." She was trying to end the conversation. At this point, I'm still somehow being polite. "Mom, that could probably be true, but if I let your children in, I would have to let other children in who wouldn't be, and they could ruin the recording. I have to apply the rule equally." "I don't care about other people's kids. I want my kids with me." She then sees my supervisor walking to the door to the audio booth next to me. "Hey supervisor, OP won't let my kids come in, but you know they are fine, right?" No, you know the rules for tonight." "He's right, they can't come in," my supervisor replied. The entitled mum then looks at both of us, fuming. "Well, if they can't come in, then we are going home." The supervisor and me both say, "That is certainly your right." The entitled mum stormed away with embarrassed kids, and we went on with the night without a care in the world. Side note, the CD turned out great, and the church raised a lot of money for charity with it. If I recall correctly, it was supporting local drug and alcohol addiction treatment centres. Wow, that is a pretty amazing cause to be raising money for, to be fair. I just don't really understand this entitled mum in this story. Like, it's not that hard to, comprehend that having kids in a service which is being recorded is going to ruin the recording, obviously. And that's not the kids' fault, by the way. Of course it's not. They're just not going to be able to sit still and be quiet for hours on end while a full, ceremony or whatever it is, normal service is going on. That's just to be expected. But I just don't get why this woman doesn't understand that. I do love as well when she's like, "Yeah, okay, if that's the case, then we're leaving." And then OP and his supervisor are both like, "Okay, yeah, sure, that's what we actually want to happen. On your way." Amazing stuff. I tell you what though, it's annoying for me in my recording if someone makes a loud noise and I have to, retake and go again. So I can only imagine if you're paying loads of money for loads of microphones, cameras, all that stuff, for a CD that's going to be raising money for charity, people are going to buy this thing, then yeah, you're not going to want screaming kids there. Makes total sense to me, but clearly not to this entitled mum. Now moving on to our next story. Crazy mother demands I give her kid my Tide Pods to play with. Hey everyone, long time lurker. I never thought I'd actually run into a wild entitled parent, but I did, and boy, do I have a doozy for you. I do my laundry weekly at the exact same laundromat I have for the last year, on the same day of the week at the same time. Nothing has ever happened before, that is, until today. I get into the building and I notice a mum, the entitled mum, and her kid, EK, probably no older than 5 or 6, just running around without care. I find an open wash and toss my clothes inside, grab my bag of Tide Pods and toss some in. That's when the entitled kid notices what I have and comes up to me. "What are those?" "They are Tide Pods. They clean my clothes." "No they don't. Mummy has a big bottle of soap." "These are soap too, but they don't make a mess." "Oh, okay." The kid runs off to his entitled mum, and I assume he is telling her all about Tide Pods. I notice out of the corner of my eye and see the entitled mum gesturing towards me and saying something to her kid. A few minutes later, the entitled kid is back, but doesn't say anything to me. I take out my earbud and ask, "What's up?" The entitled kid just stares at me and then stares at the bag of pods. I then hear his entitled mum yell from across the room, "Well, did you get your toy?" I was confused, but the kid just turns tail and runs off back to his mum. I can see that she is telling her entitled kid something, and a few moments later, he's back. "Can I have some of those?" he says. "No, they aren't for kids to mess with." "But Mummy said I could have some to play with." "No, you can't. They aren't toys, and they aren't yours." "But Mummy said you have to give me some." "I don't care what your mummy said. They aren't yours, and they aren't toys." I admit, I started to get heated and my tone of voice started to get more stern. Guys, just in case some of you younger viewers perhaps haven't heard of Tide Pods, they are laundry detergent pods. They go in the washing machine with your clothes to make them clean. They are definitely not toys. That's when I hear it. The inevitable rumble of an entitled mum. This is the super fun conversation that follows. She says, "Excuse me, don't you dare yell at my son." "I didn't yell at him, Mom. I was just..." But she cuts me off. "Don't you lie to me. I heard the whole thing and you yelled at my baby." "Whatever you say, lady." I'd stop being polite at this point. Then the entitled kid gets involved. "Mummy, he won't give me the toy." I say, "Kid, these aren't toys," but she cuts me off again. "Give him the toys now. You're too old to be playing with toys." I'm a 30-year-old man. "He deserves them for being such a good boy today." "Lady, these are not toys. They are Tide Pods." "I don't care what they are. My baby wants to play with them and you have to give them to him." "No, I don't." The entitled mum now looks like she's about to turn into a cartoon steam whistle at this point, so I decided to put my music back on and ignore her. I could hear her very faint yelling over my music, but I just ignored her and she walked away with her wailing child. Now, here's where this gets funny / kind of alarming. About half an hour later, I notice that my clothes are done drying and I go over to grab my wonderfully warm clothes from the dryer. That's when I glanced up and noticed the entitled kid wasn't with his entitled mum. I figured he was harassing someone else and didn't think much of it. As I'm folding laundry, I glance up again and there it was. The kid now has my bag of Tide Pods next to his entitled mum and is playing with the pods. And he's being super aggressive with them, clenching them hard, putting them from both ends, stomping on them and throwing them around. His entitled mum is sitting there smiling while watching her kid play with a toxic ball of liquid. I immediately walk over and snatch the bag from the entitled mum and kid and tell her, "What the heck, lady? You let your kid steal from me and play with something that is toxic? He's fine. It's not like you need them all to yourself. Stop being so selfish." At this point, I'm like, just don't. "Look, lady, I should call the cops and tell them your kid is running around stealing from people while you let him and that you're letting him play with toxic things like they are toys." "You wouldn't dare. He's just a kid. He didn't do anything wrong." And that's when it happened. Her entitled kid had jumped onto a Tide Pod and it burst. As the entitled kid slipped and hit his head. He's fine, by the way. But the kid started screaming as loud as he could. "Look what you did. You hurt my baby. I'm calling the cops." At this point, I'm a little startled and try not to laugh out of nervousness for the kid's head hitting the floor. "Lady, you call whoever you want. Your kid did this to himself." The entitled mum just picked up her now snot and soap-covered crying kid and left, still screaming about police and how I hurt her kid. I just went back to folding my clothes and left myself. The police never came while I was there, but the entitled mum left her clothes in the washer and I don't know if she came back for them. Next week, I'm going to a different laundromat in another town. No, come on. Don't do that to us. You need to go back to the same one now for the rest of your life and just follow these people around because, you can get amazing stories out of them like this. No, you can't go to a different one. Yeah, I get it might have been a bit annoying, him stealing your Tide Pods, but it makes for great stories for us. So come on, for the good of the people, for the good of Reddit, and for the good of YouTube, I beg. Keep going back to the same laundromat, and I really hope that you encounter these two again because it made for an amazing story. I did enjoy that one a lot. Again, I don't know if this kid is necessarily entitled, but the mum, Jesus Christ, There are so many more better things for your kid to play with than laundry detergent, which, by the way, if it gets in your mouth, that's probably extremely bad for you. It's literally, antibacterial cleaning stuff. You don't really want that sort of stuff in your body. But yeah, I guess this is the mum's fault once again. The kid, I don't really blame him. To be fair, they're quite squidgy and probably quite fun. So yeah, it's not his fault at all. Don't even know if he's entitled, to be honest. His mum told him to do everything. His mum, though, definitely entitled. Let's move on. Entitled mum insists I should change my dog's name to not confuse her son about animals. For some background info, I live in Argentina. I'm an advanced student in English teaching. I have 4 dogs and one of them is named Monkey. Okay, I see where we're going here. Before lockdown was enforced and made mandatory back in March, I used to tutor a kid, 5-year-old boy, in English. He would be starting English classes at school this year, and his mum, the entitled mum henceforth, had wanted him to have a head start in comparison to the other kids in his class. His mum had said that the kid was insecure about starting school, and wanted him to feel accomplished and smart by being ahead of his classmates. With logic, but okay. She was paying me good money, and the kid actually showed an interest in the language and all the activities I did with him, so tutoring him was actually enjoyable for both of us. When lockdown was enforced, we had to suspend the tutoring sessions because public transport was unavailable and they lived on the other corner of the city. Fast forward to today. I took my 1-year-old dog Monkey for a walk and we ran into the entitled mum and her kid at the park. The kid was thrilled to meet one of my dogs at last. I had talked to him about them before and showed him pictures. He was very polite and asked what her name was, how old she was, if he could pet her, etc. When I told him that my dog's name was Monkey, he was thrilled to let me know that he knew what that word meant, because they had learned about different animals in his classes during the year. The entitled mum, on the other hand, was less thrilled to know that I had named my dog as another animal. She started questioning me, although it felt more of an interrogation about just why I would do that, and if I did it just to show off my skills in English, if I was aware it could be confusing, and so on. I asked her what she meant by confusing, thinking that she meant by the gender of my dog. I find it silly that people assume animals' gender by their names, but it happens. But she said, and I'm quoting, "Why would you try to confuse my son by naming a dog as another animal? He's trying hard to learn things in English because you prompted him to. And now, whenever he hears the word monkey, he will think of your dog." I tried to explain to her why I had chosen that name for my dog, but she then went on about how I should change my dog's name to something more dog-like, so children like her son would feel less confused about animals. She was very insistent on names I should call my dog, even telling her son to try calling Monkey other names to see if she responded. And I almost told her I could probably call her the entitled mum's name instead because she's a female dog after all, no confusion there. But I restrained because her kid was there and I didn't want to deal with her getting all angry at me in public. The kid said he liked Monkey's name because it's unique and suits her because of her curly tail, like a monkey cartoon. And I told him it was actually one of the reasons I had chosen that name for her. The entitled mum realised there was no win for her in the issue and quickly said some greeting, took her kid and left. Monkey and I actually shared a look for a moment, and I took it as cue to come home already. Oh, and don't worry, ladies and gents, we do of course have some dog tags. Here is a picture of Monkey, and you can see the curly tail. It all makes sense now. I mean, yeah, I kind of get it, but if you're going to get confused about a monkey being a dog in a different language, surely that's something that you can overcome in literally one lesson if you were to be confused about it. It's not going to ruin this kid's entire, potential to be a king of English, is it? I mean, really, it's not that deep. It's just like one word that maybe he'll confuse for literally one lesson. Although, to be fair, it already seems like he understands why you've called your dog Monkey, OP, and understands the difference between a dog and a monkey in English. I don't understand the problem. It's just weird with these stories, right? When the kid is more, open-minded than their parent, despite the kid being 5 years old. They already, are more accepting of people choosing their own names for their own pets than entitled people like this Karen. It's a weird one. But yeah, that's just the way it is, I guess. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of Entitled Parents. Before you click off this video, make sure you are subscribed, and make sure, if you do click off the video, that you're clicking here straight away. No more other channels, only mine. That is the rules around here. Yeah, loads of great videos in here. And also, if you are a big fan of my channel, a big fan of me, then you might want to check out my merch down here. It's great stuff, the best material I can possibly find, and it would make an amazing Christmas present. So yeah, go and check it out.